Well, let's dive into the Patreon mailbag. If you want to submit a question to the mailbag for me and Denise to answer, become one of our pledge hammers over on Patreon at any dollar amount and leave a comment in the community tab. Do not email me. I will just lose it. I'm bad at my job. Jordan Thomas, quite a long question, this one, but I think it's one that deserves answering. He said a few weeks back, Adam and Alex were discussing Naomi and her recent push due to her trending on Twitter. They brought up good points, which made me think about WWE and how they book minority wrestlers. What I think frustrates me most about WWE, among other things, is how they seem so reluctant to book minority wrestlers like top stars in the company. For example, Seth lost the Universal Championship to The Fiend, afterwards led Team Raw during Survivor Series, and began his run as the Monday Night Messiah gimmick, which is still going on as we speak, and we know it's only a matter of time before he gets another shot at the title. Meanwhile, Kofi lost the WWE Championship to Brock in 8 seconds, placed back in the New Day with various directionless feuds, and most of us know he'll probably never get another shot at the title. But as Alex and Adam stated, it's not about championships. It's knowing the company sees your worth, knowing the company will devote all their time to give you as an individual, the best storylines and opportunities to be successful. People are excited about Naomi getting a push, Big E getting a push, Keith Lee being a major star when it comes to the main roster, but I seriously have my doubts based on history. The Hurt Business could be much more dominant if they were just given, if they weren't given the ceiling of a mid-card act. Bianca Belair was booked to be dominant in the Royal Rumble. Now she's directionless. Andrade should be challenging for the main title at this point, but he's stuck battling in the tag division. Ali, despite being very popular, just lost on main event to Riddick Moss. Not saying that WWE should just push a person because of diversity, but the roster does include wrestlers of color who should be treated like top stars in the company and booked strong with or without a title like Seth, Roman, Charlotte, etc. Bianca Belair could be a big, if not bigger, star than Becky Lynch, in my opinion, if WWE just gave her the opportunity.
Yeah, so, okay, here's my issue with that. So my issue is that I hate when people say, oh, like let's say they put up a Latino or a woman or a black person or whatever, whoever they decide to put in that main spot. I don't like when people say, oh, they're just there because they needed a token Latino or a token Latina or whatever it is, because it always comes down to that. And I'm like, okay, look at whatever this person has been doing. I don't like the fact that people, when they get to that spot, we have to be bringing out all these bullet points as to why they should be there. And then speaking in terms for like the Latino stars that have been in WWE, we have not really seen anybody that, I mean, yes, okay, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero. Okay, yes, we saw Alberto Del Rio get to the top and all of that. But like the person mentioned, Andrade is one of the most charismatic, most in-ring talented performers, and he's sort of just floating around on the Raw roster. And so I would really, given the fact that people are drawn to people like Angel Garza and Andrade, you see it. It's not like if they were to get a main push, a main event spot, it's not just because, oh, they need a Latino to take that Latino spot. No, they're actually competitors that are great and they have the charisma. Same thing with Bianca Belair. I mean, I cannot tell you. I think that she has something that a lot of the women, it's something that it's natural. And you can't teach that. You can't teach what Bianca Belair has. I'm not just talking about the athleticism, because yeah, you can learn to be athletic or you can learn the moves and all of that stuff. You can learn technique, but she has something more, something extra that you just can't teach. And so because of that, she has that thing that Becky Lynch has, that Charlotte Flair has, that gets them to the top. So I do think that there needs to be a bigger effort to help those people that have all the tools, help them in terms of booking to get them to that spot where they should be. If Bianca Belair is getting over just like Becky Lynch was, then okay, help Bianca Belair get even more further along with the fans. And there's so many other people that I haven't even mentioned that obviously would deserve an incredible spot in the company. But yeah, I do agree. I think that there needs to be more, and I think they are making it. I think we're seeing glimpses of it, like more effort. I mean, look at what Zelina has been doing with her stable as well. So we haven't seen effort, but I do think it's going to be a little bit of a progress until we get there. But I'm hoping that we do get there.
Like, and you say, you got you've had Ray, or we've had Ray, Eddie, and Alberto. But like, Eddie was 2004, Ray was a top star 2006, Alberto was 10 years ago. Like, it's been a long time. And when you've got someone like Andrade on the main roster, like, man, like what an incredible talent that should have been instantly slotted into that main event scene. But Ollie and I recently were talking about this while we're recording. It's not been released yet, because I think it'll be out next week when we finish it. We're reviewing SummerSlam 2010 for the Patreon podcast. And the opening match on that card is Dolph Ziggler versus Kofi Kingston, which is basically, it's a running joke that it's always the opening match on a card. If you're watching a pay-per-view around that time, it's likely going to open with Dolph Ziggler versus Kofi Kingston. But we were talking about how, like, WWE never capitalized on Dolph Ziggler ever, really. They never pushed him as a top guy. Even, the SummerSlam Survivor Series, rather, 2014 match, when he was like the sole survivor, pushed to the moon in that match. The very next month, back to the mid card you go. Like, they never saw anything in him. And I think that's what WWE's problem often is that when you go into the company, you are slotted into a position. Kofi, when Kofi signed with WWE, he was slotted at a position. You are a mid-card guy. And he got that WWE title picture, but even when he won the title, he was still positioned as a mid-card guy. He wasn't given like main event feuds. We talked about it last year during his run, but he felt like the third most important thing on SmackDown, behind Roman Reigns' main storyline and Shane McMahon versus Kevin Owens. That's your WWE champion. He's the third most important thing. He's feuding with Dolph Ziggler. He's feuding with these sort of like mid-card guys. And then, loses the title, straight back down to the mid-card you go, because that's the perception they're at. And I just got this, I don't want WWE to look at someone like Andrade or Angel Garza and just think like, right, you're mid-card. That's where you're slotted in. We may push you into the main event for a brief period, but as soon as that's done, you're back to the mid-card you go. But someone like Seth Rollins, a Randy Orton, a Roman Reigns, a Charlotte, when they come in, they're like, oh, right, you're a main eventer. And we're going to push you as a main eventer, even if that's, even if it's not the right move, you're a main eventer because we've decided that you are.
And it's kind of like, I 100% agree with you, because that's what it is. And it's kind of like, what is the ingredient? What is the recipe that you need? Because if you look at people, for example, Drew McIntyre, when he was first with the company, I mean, he was not going to be in that main event picture like he is now. But then he leaves the company, he reinvents himself, comes back with this new look, has this whole other, has this whole arsenal of more experience and work, and has worked different styles with different wrestlers all across the globe, right? So he sort of elevated himself. So with that, he made himself into that main eventer where they changed the perception of him, right? But then there's people like AJ Styles. AJ Styles was already this big name prior to WWE. And so when he came in, he didn't go to NXT. No, he went straight to the main roster. And so it's kind of like, in my opinion, you have to have something already before going into the company that makes you just that much more grander. But at the same time, that's not always the case, because we have seen other guys that come in where you're just like, oh man, he's got so much hype behind him. I mean, look at EC3. Think of all the hype that he had going into the company, and then that fell short. Samoa Joe had a lot of hype. Shinsuke Nakamura had a lot of hype. And yeah, they had some moments, but they didn't have necessarily that big moment.
Yeah, and it's funny actually, because my next actually good video is going up tomorrow, which is CM Punk actually good? Would you provide a little bit of audio for? Thank you very much, Denise. And in that, I kind of make the point that Punk was brought in, despite all the pyro and ballyhoo that he had coming in, he was a mid-card guy. Like, that is what WWE saw him as, and it wasn't until that pipe bomb promo that changed their mind. And they but even then, when he won the title, he was still like underneath John Cena. Like, John Cena versus John Laurinaitis was the main story, and Punk was just like, as champion, over the limit 2012, you're not the main event with Daniel Bryan. John Cena versus John Laurinaitis is the main event with Daniel. So yeah, it is frustrating, I think, sometimes, particularly if it's a guy, if it's a wrestler that you really like. Like, I love Bianca Belair. I think she's so great. And like, when you would sort of talk about it then, like, it's when she came into the Mae Young Classic, the first one, and she just made that entrance, you're like, oh, you're a star. You're an absolute star. And there's such a bright future ahead of you. And she's very young as well, so there is a lot of time for her. But yeah, I think there's a lot. We still got time. Still got time with Bianca.